ridiculous stuff. Hello, everyone. I'm Shelby.
Hello, I'm Charlotte.
Raise your hand if you've been to one of our other panels. We've done 3 other panels besides this one. So we did Is My Neopet Still Alive? We did Survival of the Horrorist, and we did Are You Smarter Than, and I still can't pronounce it.
Are you smarter than an A or Z?
So thank you. Love the hands up. Pat yourself on the back. There's another teacher moment right there. We are from Austin, as we just said. This is our first time at San Japan. This is our first time having like tons of people in our panels. So as you can tell, like with each panel, if you've been to our other ones, we got up there and we're like, we thought 10 people would show up. For this one, we thought 5 people would show up. Like we were like, this is Sunday afternoon. Like some tired people may come in, but like we were not expecting such a big crowd. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. That's the moment where you clap. Yes, thank you. Somebody figured that out. A little bit of story behind this one. I got the approval email for Survival of the Horrorist, and I was like, yay, awesome. And then they sent out like the next email that was like, check where you are on the schedule, and then realized that this one also got approved. So I'm not gonna call it rushed. I did spend some time on it, but there was some panic.
We spent a lot of time.
There was some panic behind it, like I will be real. I'm definitely a little insecure about it. Like, did I put enough detail? Did I put too much detail? Did I include the right cons? So be nice. I will just say that. If you attended any of the events that come up, please feel free to come up and share any stories, because I did not attend any of these events personally. I was able to briefly interview someone that was at one of the conventions, but that's kind of it. Everything else kind of came from the internet. So, let's get started. Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Can I take a sip of water real quick?
Yes.
Can you read that while I take a sip of water?
All right, as a heads up, this is a 13 plus panel. I don't think that's an issue because I didn't really see any like little ones walk in. There's no like major graphic descriptions of anything, just mentions of like a little bit. I don't think there's any violence, but there's definitely like some suggestive stuff in there. Just as a heads up if anybody's uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. We're not describing like in detail like what that looked like. It'll be like, hey, drugs were there kind of thing. So just throwing that out there like ahead of time. If there's like a 5-year-old in here, just
I don't think I saw any.
So they managed to get in. I've seen like several small children at 13 plus panels, so just kind of a heads up, like I said.
They usually have their parents.
Anyways, yeah. We don't go into detail, just saying it's there. Next one, the presentation is kind of chaotic to fit the vibe, and also because I really don't have any graphic design skills. I'm gonna be real. Y'all, they had this sticker, and I was like, I have to put this on the back of my phone, because this is me. I'm not artistic at all. I'm like left-brained as it gets. So, just throwing that out there. What makes a good convention? Raise your hand if you've been to more conventions than just this one. Like you know kind of what a good convention's supposed to look like. So they require a lot of planning and rational decision making. They tend to follow the same formula. Don't make me laugh too much while I'm presenting, y'all. So most cons, they start small. They calculate a realistic attendance based on pre-sales, based on community interest, and they tend to round down. They round down and then they round down some more. They try to be as conservative as possible in trying to estimate how many people are going to be there just to be on the safe side. Sticking to an initial budget and not banking on funds that aren't guaranteed. If you don't have the money, you're not trying to spend it. You're spending what you have. Adequate staffing, covering every aspect of planning. So if you're kind of a larger con, the panels and programming person shouldn't also be doing the finances. You kind of have separate people doing separate things. And of course, well thought out policies, codes of conducts that are actually enforced, that aren't just like written on paper and not actually like enforced. So what made these conventions fail? Not doing one or more of these things. And I'm sure some of you are reading this on screen and already thinking of like the conventions in your head that you're like, oh, they didn't do that. These are kind of the main ways that a convention can fail. I did the disaster meter. We're gonna have some hot takes on this one. We're gonna have some anger, and we're gonna probably have some people storming out of the room. I ranked them. We're gonna go over 5 of kind of the biggest yikeses Is that a word? It is now.
Yikesy.
We're going over the 5 biggest uh-ohs kind of in the recent past. I ranked them from like normal amount of bad, like just people were angry, to like actual dangerous situations where people were like not okay. The first one was Tanacon. That one was just kind of a normal amount of bad. Next we've got Pegasus Unicon. I'm hearing the reactions already. This one's gonna make some people angry. I actually put Dashcon in the middle. It is not the worst one. I know, believe it or not, it is not the worst one. Thank you, the person nodding in the back that agrees with me.
Rain first, better be at the end.
I appreciate it. The next one is Rain Thank you. And the last one I had to include Fire Festival. Because we had to. I know, music festivals are kind of just like anime conventions for normies. So I said that and like no one thought that was funny, so thank you.
Oh, we have a raised hand over here.
All right.
I've been to a lot of like Con and
Yeah.
Japan, but like I've only heard of Dashcon. I haven't heard of any of these other ones. Maybe touch on them briefly. Like,
Oh, we're gonna oh yeah. You're gonna know about them by the end of this.
We're in for a treat today.
We got another question, then we'll move on.
Do you have any opinions on free-for-all in brief?
I'm not familiar with that, actually.
Me neither.
Pretty much, when your furry convention is talking about freedom and being uncancelable and the advertising.
I can see how that.
Yeah, don't do that.
It wasn't like dangerous or anything, but about like 100 people in love were like.
Oh, I may have to include that next time I do this. Thank you for that.
I'm gonna write that down.
Thank you.
FURL.
Thank you. So we're gonna cover the good question mark intentions. People usually don't intentionally plan conventions to fail, so we'll kind of discuss the initial vision, like what they thought it was gonna look like. The bad, what went wrong at the convention, how it spiraled, and the ugly aftermath. So kind of the effects of the fallout, as well as some theories and some of them behind what really happened. So we're gonna start with some honorable mentions. You may or may not have heard of these. Ultimate Fantasy is a Star Trek con from the 80s in Houston, and this was kind of like the mother of bad conventions. And according to the internet, I was not even alive in 1982, so I can't vouch for this, but this was kind of like, for like longtime con goers, this was the first realization that cons could be like bad. Apparently the attendees there were just like sloppy and rude and not behaving themselves. And it kind of gave the Star Trek fandom a bad rap at the time, especially, you know, back then it wasn't quite as mainstream. I'm not gonna say it's totally mainstream to be a geek, but like,
Oh, it wasn't remotely.
you know, it was already like a lot more stigmatized back then, and then this made it just like worse, that they were like, what is wrong with these people? So that was like the inspiration. Tent Moot was from the early 2000s. Someone was claiming to plan this big Lord of the Rings convention. I don't remember if I'm allowed to touch this. I'm gonna move it down a little bit. It was basically an organizer claiming that they were gonna put on this big convention, and they were partnering with a charity, and then they like got a bunch of money and ran. And somebody eventually did get caught. They got charged with identity theft and fraud, so Tent Moot never actually happened, but it's another kind of disaster. And then Minorama, I almost considered making this like a main one, but as far as I could tell, it never actually happened. But this was in 2014. This was another thing where somebody was like, I'm putting on a convention, and they took in $500,000 of ticket sale revenue, which is a lot. That is crazy. And then it just didn't happen. They were like, peace out. And a bunch of people were planning on going to this, and they tried last minute to like throw it together with $0 because the 500,000 was just gone. And as far as I could tell, it didn't happen. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, but I couldn't find a source on if anyone actually launched it or not. But those were kind of some honorable mentions of bad conventions that I thought I would bring up.
Was the money recovered?
Sorry?
The 500K, was it ever recovered?
It was never recovered.
Not that I could tell, no. Someone just like literally, it was just a scam from the start. You got a question?
That's kind of like the Star Wars pub run that's in San Antonio right now. It's been canceled for 5 years now, and they're not refunding.
No! Thank you for throwing these out because yeah, we're definitely definitely writing these down.
Please fill this out. So it was a Star Wars.
Pub run, yeah.
This may turn into an hour-and-a-half panel next time we do it. Thank you for this. We're gonna start with our first one, Tanacon, where narcissism meets complete lack of preparation. This was in 2018 in California. Thank you for agreeing with me. I know I hear like kind of a heated opinion on that one. So, the good question mark intentions. This is kind of the one where I do think there were like really genuine good intentions, but it's still kind of hard to tell. So, are we familiar with Tana? I still am trying to learn how to say her last name. Monjo. Mongu. Just be. She's a YouTuber who likes attention. Is probably.
Like actually anything?
So yeah, she was upset that VidCon, everyone knows what VidCon is, I assume, in this room. Just making sure.
Yep.
Big YouTube convention. She was mad that they were not giving her a featured creator badge. She made this big, like, angry video about it. Basically, she was citing safety concerns, that she wasn't gonna have security, she wasn't gonna be able to move privately around this convention. Like I said, posted some big YouTube video crying and being angry. So this whole convention started from a joke. Nobody knows who made the joke. Nobody has claimed to have made this joke. I kind of feel like she pretended somebody said this and nobody actually did. About holding an autograph session in a parking lot and not actually going to VidCon. And then one day she's just like, let's do it. Let's just like have our own convention. It's just like kind of a spur of the moment idea. We're gonna have some awesome guests and we're gonna make it free somehow. I still really want to know the logic behind that. Like, we'll make it free somehow. I don't know how she thought she was going to pay for that. She's like, we're going to invite these stars, and who were also going to VidCon at the same time. And many more, aka we don't know who else to invite. So it's this whole idea, and she's promoting it. She's like, I'm going to have my own convention because screw VidCon, they suck. And then the convention actually happens. She claims she started prepping for the event 30 days before it was supposed to take place. Which is insane. You need at least a year. At least a year. But that's okay. She's like, it's totally fine. I'm just a last minute person, so I can put a con together in 30 days. Except she's not actually able to sell the tickets for free. So you can get a general admission for $1, which, like, why bother? VIP is $65. I want to say, but this is unconfirmed, that most people did end up getting VIP, so people are paying money to attend this free convention. What's up?
I've heard that people were getting the same badges even if they pay for VIP or general admission.
I totally believe that. So allegedly, you got the same badge no matter what. I totally believe that.
Write that down.
So while she's scheduling this, nobody bothered to check the VidCon schedule. Remember, all her special guests are actually like also at VidCon. They're not only at Tanacon. So featured people are double booked. So like, which one are you gonna go to? I'm going to VidCon. The hotel capacity is 5,000, which is fine because they only sold 4,200 in advance. Except, and this is probably the only time in convention history of ever that this will ever happen, that way too many people showed up. 20,000 people show up for a hotel that can fit 5,000 people. So we are outside. Yeah, they open up registration 2 hours early. It opens literally at 6 a.m. The line is obviously out the door and in the parking lot, out in the heat. People are stuck outside, there's no shade, they're kind of getting dehydrated, they're getting sunburned, they're getting angry, they start rioting a little bit because they're like, what is going on here? And as you can guess, because you can't fit 20,000 people into a 5,000 capacity hotel, most of them get turned away. But what happened if you actually got in? A few people did get into the convention, and there wasn't anything to do. So after all that, you're like standing in line. You got in line at 6 a.m. You paid $65. There's no actual activities. There's no vendors. There's no panels. It's literally like one hallway and a concert room, which is where I believe the main guests were going to come. So you get a VIP swag bag. It's got this like Live Strong bracelet. If you were around in the early 2000s, you know what, you remember that era. Some of us are like, ugh.
They were like little rubber plasticky bracelets.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very cheap.
They were a big thing in 2000s, if you're a millennial. It was kind of a little before silly bands. Yeah, so it's got one of those, it's got a phone grip and a condom. That's like it. Literally the only thing that happened at this convention is that a couple got married within the first hour, and that was literally the only thing that happened this entire time. So there's your swag bag right there. You pay $65 for that, by the way, for this cheap bracelet and just the condom. And the wedding that somebody filmed in a really low quality. And that was it. That's what you paid money to go to. And that's if you got in. So 15,000 people didn't get to go to this. It was, very selective. So, as you can imagine, people are not happy about this. They're like, what did I just pay $65 for? They have to cancel it after day one. She is supposedly trying to find a bigger venue to move from 5,000 people to 20,000 people. Obviously, you can't just do that on the fly. So it's canceled. You can't fit anybody anywhere. The police supposedly got involved and were like, you need to shut this down. This is causing problems. People obviously are very upset. Some literally traveled hundreds of miles. They paid money. It sounds ridiculous to say they paid thousands of dollars, but they're driving to California. They're staying in hotel rooms, all to see their favorite YouTubers for free or for cheap. I mean, even $65 to have this meet and greet that she's promising is a pretty good deal. And then you show up and you get a condom. So people are not happy. Of course, she tries to do damage control. She's she does the sobbing, I'm gonna offer a full refund even if it comes out of my personal pocket. She insists that she still wants to do it. This whole thing's a disaster, and she's like, it's okay guys, we're gonna do it again, but I'm just gonna make it better. She says it's gonna be free, for real this time, with 17 times more security. That's literally the quote. Yeah. 17 times more security. Not 20 times, not 10 times, 17, for whatever reason. And good vibes. Some people are like, yeah, okay, so maybe this will go well next year. So does that mean that Tanacon 2019 happened? No, because then suddenly, she reveals that she's now finally a featured creator at VidCon 2019 after all of that. So,
She finally got her badge.
she finally got what she wanted the whole time. This was one way to throw a temper tantrum. People, of course, are angry. They're like, you're supposed to be anti-VidCon. You posted this 20-minute tangent crying about how much they suck. We were all angry at them, She's our anti-establishment queen. And then she posts this YouTube video. She gives this long rant about how she's suddenly I've grown as a person. And I've changed my mind. And really, I just wanted to have the convention because I wanted to feel validated and accepted. And that's why I was so mad about not getting that featured creator badge. It's some tiny little mistake and not 20,000 people out in a parking lot, getting sunburnt. To her credit, they did force VidCon to reconsider its featured creator policy and who could be included, and I need to keep track of time, who could be included and who could not be included. Some people say that's a win, some people are kind of eye roll. So, it's kind of debatable whether the whole thing was just a ploy to get into VidCon or if it was she really wanted to have this convention. I don't think we'll ever really know what her intentions were, but it was a mess, and then everyone just kind of started acting like it never happened after that. There was never another Tanacon. I don't know if people got refunds, and that happened. So that was our first one. Our next one. Now the fun ones begin. I heard that in the audience. I'm gonna take a sip of water real quick. It's hard when I'm And now that we're getting to the fun ones, I want to do a show of hands if you've heard of this one, Pegasus Unicon. This one is not quite as well known. I'm seeing some hands. Can you believe it's almost been 10 years since this happened, by the way? Wow. Isn't that crazy? 2013 was almost 10 years ago.
I'm only 21, don't do this to me.
I know. You don't want to know how old I am then. So, now we get into the more fun ones. Pegasus Unicon, where being petty didn't get anyone very far. This one happened in Las Vegas. Yes, it was all about pettiness. Something's in my throat.
want me to take over?
Nah, I got it. Good question mark intentions. So you have to remember in the early 2010s is when the Brony fandom kind of started to come to life for the first time. It wasn't like as established as it is now. You know, the show premiered, I believe, in 2010. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
And the idea of being a Brony was still really coming to life, you know, because of course this was started to be planned in around 2012. So the Brony identity was still kind of new. Things weren't quite as established. But there was one big convention, which I still don't know why it shut down. It was called Bronycon. People really loved it, so I still don't know what killed that. But
I have a feeling there was some under the table stuff, but maybe
next time.
not.
But one day out of nowhere,
I think I saw a hand.
does somebody know? Okay, that makes sense.
So it just ended and the fandom died?
I don't think the Phantom died. I've seen some people dressed up here, but it's died down.
It's died down, okay.
Maybe it was because of this. I'm not a Brony, so I really appreciate y'all like correcting me here. But anyway, so Lost Pegasus Unicon started when a couple of My Little Pony fans were like, we don't like Bronycon. We don't like that they're getting all the attention. They were kind of the one big name My Little Pony convention. They weren't the only one at the time, but they were the big one. And from what I could tell from my research, they specifically wanted to put on this convention to overthrow Bronycon. They were like, we're gonna do better than them just because. And I still like have not been able to find a motive for that, like if they had beef with the people that run Bronycon, or if like they just didn't like it there, or if they're just petty. It kind of feels like they're just petty. Like I said, it was still kind of in its infancy, but it was growing fast. So how do we outdo enemy number one? Because we hate Bronycon for some reason, trying to put on this convention. Go big, no going home. So the idea behind it was that it was gonna be this like really glamorous, high energy weekend in Las Vegas of all places, you know, cause party town. No expense spared. They went straight for like the most expensive options they could find. They picked the Riviera, which they believed to be a nice hotel that was like right on the Las Vegas Strip. They wanted it to just be like one giant expensive party. They invited 22 high-profile guests. I'm talking like Tara Strong, John Delancey, like high-profile guests to this thing. Their first year, they've never put this con on before. And I just wanted to put a comparison. San Japan invited 7 in its first year, a more reasonable number.
How many did we get this year?
We got 2 big ones. I know we got Iron Mouse and Years from Big Show Joe.
Yeah.
And you have to keep in mind, yeah, San Japan's been going since 05, 07.
I did see a pretty big list this year, but I don't think I counted.
Okay, you start small, and then when you like have money is when you invite Tara Strong to your convention. You don't invite her right off the bat, you know? So basically, they're just thinking it's gonna be this big 3-day party, it's gonna be so much fun, Bronycon is gonna be no more after this. The bad before it even started. Because it just went south real fast. So oopsie daisy, somebody didn't do their research. The Riviera filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Thanks to declining revenue, massive debt. Remember, this was in 2013, so they're like just coming out of bankruptcy. The hotel within the locals, it had a reputation for being like really gross and shoddy and kind of on its last leg. It was known for having really like paper thin walls and kind of like cheap and inappropriate signs everywhere. I don't want to like get into too much detail on that because it is just a 13+ panel, but it had some questionable things basically. Then it gets worse. So the hotel signs this super shady deal with Las Pegasus. They can pay the bill throughout the weekend instead of up front. You never want to do that. You pay the bill right away. They plan for 2,000 people to show up. They only sell, allegedly, I couldn't find an exact number anywhere. They allegedly only sell about 400 tickets, but they're like 2,000 people are definitely going to show up. So somebody didn't do math. Remember, we always do the most conservative estimate possible, especially when it comes to money. Speaking of someone, there weren't a lot of someones around. Nobody was really like hired to do this. Like they didn't hire enough staff or volunteers for this event. And I need to look again if you want to do the next one.
Yes. So basically, there was nobody to run this panel. There was no someone to differentiate VIPs from normal guests. There was no one to do your registration. There was no security. That is the big one. No security at all.
There was not really security, not enough. No one was there to pick up the VIP guests from the airport. No one was really running registration in detail. So they didn't really have people to run this big convention. And they're trying to make this like this giant convention. Here's some pictures. I know this one is a little hard to see, but both of them were printed, the badges and the programs were used, one printer was used for the whole thing. Remember, they're expecting 2,000 people to show up. Why would we hire a professional printing company? It's this is the program. And I put a joke that I said it looked like it was done by a 4th grader, and then Charlotte was like, that's gonna offend 4th graders.
Okay, the drawing on the pony isn't bad. What we're pointing out is
the rest of it.
The word art, basically.
Yeah,
it's
so
word art.
This is good. The art itself is good. It's the fact that it's just like someone did this in Microsoft Word in like 5 minutes with like the, and then it's really hard to see. I thought that the screen would be a little bit bigger, but the badges, they didn't have names printed or anything. They had to kind of like print details on it in Sharpie. If you can see, really, it's really, really tiny. That's about as good as I could get it. Yeah, they had one printer to print all of these things. And I don't remember if I included this, but I know they did not print enough programs, and people paid for advertising space in them, so that was like a problem. Yeah, and this was a page inside of it too, this like little squiggles. You know, when you're like in 4th grade and on Neopets and have that as like your font, that's like literally what was in these like professional programs. So all of that is happening. Things are bad before the convention even starts, and then the ball gets rolling. From what I could tell, the first couple days were kind of okay. Like, most people said that they were having fun. There were some problems. So the artist alley was blocked by a giant wall. So you could go in through like one tiny little like passageway from what I could see from pictures, but we didn't have any staff. So no one's really pointing to people, like pointing out and saying like, hey, the art is over there. So artists aren't selling any art, which really stinks. There's no security in the VIP area, so the GA attendees are just going in the VIP area because nobody's stopping them. So if you paid extra money to be a VIP, like, screw you. Nobody is keeping track of any money anywhere. Allegedly, finances are being documented using a spiral notebook and a crayon. Someone said it was an orange crayon. Cannot confirm, but we got a hand up.
Does they also use like fake money instead of actual money?
Yes, we're gonna get to that. Yes, they did. And then there's a big problem. Only about 1,000 people showed up. I couldn't find an exact number doing research. Some people say it was only 800, some people say it was closer to 1,200. Either way, they were expecting 2,000 people there, and remember, they still owe this hotel money. So now we don't have that money. So we're gonna devolve from bad to outright scam territory. The first shady way to get money, they made people, as we just said, they trade in real cash for what they called Unicon bits, which was basically Monopoly money. And they could then go, and you can see how, just appreciate that for a second, no context needed on that.
I got a question for you. Was that printed on their one printer?
I think so. I mean, it looks like it was almost like hand-drawn. I couldn't get too many details on it, but it wasn't like professional looking, as you could tell. So the idea was you use Unicon bits throughout the weekend, and then you can trade it in on Sunday for real money. You could probably already guess how that turned out. The second shady way they go to get money, they're telling the hotel to unapply the discount. You know that conventions usually, their hotels give a discount. They just kind of go, hey, take that discount out and put it towards the deal. Yeah, so people are suddenly on the line for like hundreds, if not thousands of dollars out of nowhere. The third shady way to get money, they suddenly discount the cost of autographs to get more people to purchase them, which I believe went against the contracts for their guests. Anything they could do basically just to try and get money. Did that work? No. Surprise, they still don't have enough money to pull this thing together. I do believe that they just barely had enough to pay the hotel off. I could be wrong on that, but they didn't have money for the guests. They didn't have money for the Unicon bits. All those things were kind of left. So the obvious mature solution to that is to pull the fire alarm and make a run for it, which is allegedly, nobody can confirm whether they really ran away. Like, no one has said, like, for sure, like, yeah, that happened, but, like, the fire alarm magically went off. There just so happened to not be a fire anywhere, and then the organizers just so happened to not be anywhere when everyone was allowed back in. So I'm gonna take another water break if you'll.
Okay, so basically, everyone from the last slide who might have bought into these scams, so they bought the Unicon bits, they bought like the discounted guest contract, or they rented a hotel room that was allegedly discounted, they are all collectively screwed over.
So you have to think, and I noticed this on the internet, like people were like, well, the special guests already have a lot of money. Like they just basically paid to work, because it was work for them. So like they had to pay for their own like taxi ride to this place, they had to pay for their own hotel room, and allegedly not all of them got paid the money that they were promised. So it was a disaster. Artists are screwed, attendees are screwed, it's a mess. So thankfully, fan organizations, mainly the ones under the Everfree network, they hear of the chaos. I think some of them were at the event, and they start a hashtag Lost Pegasus, and they actually do manage to raise money to try to pay off the guests, to try to pay some of the artists, to try to cover what they can. They picked up the slack for free. And from what I could tell, it was basically like the whole thing was just chaos, and they just kind of stepped in out of the kindness of their hearts, like nobody made them. So it was actually like really, really cool of them to do that. They had like live streams going. It kind of showed the resilience of the Brony fandom. I think that was like a really cool thing for them to do. So afterwards, you know, they had that whole disaster weekend. People are broke. People just paid way too much for their hotel. Artists got screwed. People start wondering if the whole thing was a scam from the very start. There's still really not any proof to confirm or deny whether it was. It could have just been that somebody was just way in over their head. Obviously, the special guests are pissed. Hasbro actually threatens to no longer allow them to go to like any fan convention, not even like established ones, because of how badly this went and how much they got like screwed out of money. Yeah, so this is bad. People are kind of thinking that bronies suck, even though, you know, the majority of the bronies were innocent in this, and it was just those organizers that scammed everyone. The whole thing kind of earns the Riviera a bad reputation too, because they literally just uncomped people's rooms and did the pay-as-you-go like sketchy deal, which it's like, why would you want to work at a hotel that does that or go to a hotel that does that? Then the organizers kind of come out of nowhere. They are facing lawsuits, I believe, and they release this really long statement, like several pages. I read through most of it. They basically don't take any responsibility because they're being really mature about it, just like how they pulled the fire alarm. They claim they never actually abandoned the con, but that they like handed it over to Everfree Network. So they act like that was like a professional decision and not Everfree Network like desperately jumping in and trying to save the train wreck. They claim they never asked the hotel to uncomp the rooms, but several sources have said that they watched the organizers ask the hotel to do this. I wasn't there, so I can't say like for sure, but I'm gonna believe several witnesses over like organizers trying to save their own butts. So too long didn't read. Basically, we didn't mean to have a bad con, so be nice to us and nothing's really our fault. Like, ooh. That was their like apology. So okay, that was the end of that. Everyone already saw that ahead of time. Our next one. That's why we're really here. Why y'all really showed up. And I'm gonna be honest on this one. It was really hard to decide what to include because everybody knows so much about this. So this is definitely a moment that if you want to share details, please raise your hand as we go on, because there's just so much that happened. I tried to give as much of an overview as possible for like the few people that don't know what happened at Dashcon. I have met people that don't know. So yeah, that was seriously their logo, by the way. So yes, that happened in July of 2014 in Illinois, just outside of Chicago. The good intentions, yes, I did all pictures of ball pits. I had to. So in the early 2010s, if you were there, you were there. If you weren't, you weren't. It's so hard to describe what Tumblr was like back then. But as someone who was like very heavily on Tumblr as a teenager, it was really this safe haven for like fandom-oriented / obsessed teens and 20-somethings, mostly teenagers. Like, we're talking kind of like 13 to 25 age range. The whole thing kind of started as a joke. I actually do kind of remember seeing it like being reblogged, that there should be this Tumblr convention, and how cool would it be if we could all like meet in person and not have to do the weird like shoelace president thing.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. So that had been circulating for a while, and then a 15-year-old, literally like a high school sophomore, she just kind of decides one day, like, let's make this real. I can do this. I can put, and like, no shade to teenagers. Sometimes you're just a little impulsive, you know, how you don't really have your brain until you're 25. It's kind of true. I can attest to that. Like, I'm a different person.
Are you sure? Because I still don't have my brain.
Oh my gosh. So it starts with just this 15-year-old. I don't remember her name off the top of my head. I did watch her YouTube video. She's gathering teams on the internet of fandom experts. So she's not really planning too many logistics. She's just kind of trying to find different people from different fandoms, and they're gonna just try to put it all together in one convention. And there's like a lot going on. So they're hoping in this convention they can fit Super Hulock, Homestuck, Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Star Trek, Teen Wolf, video gaming, that's literally like what they called it, video gaming, which could be anything. Welcome to Night Vale, furries, the LGBT community, and all of that was all supposed to happen like over one weekend. Which it sounds like a lot of fun, but it's kind of general. Like most conventions do well if they at least like kind of have a theme. Like this one, you know, it has an anime theme. Of course, there are panels that don't have to do with anime. People come and they do panels on video games or things like that, but it's geared towards anime. This wasn't really geared towards anything except Tumblr, which is like, it could be anything.
Imagine a Twitter convention.
Yeah, it's kind of just like what would you even do?
Burn it down.
Can I make a joke or a true social convention? Just kidding. So they're kind of doing that. They have these different committees, but is anybody actually looking for venues? No, they're not planning finances. It's sort of a pipe dream at this point. Until I called them the 3 stars. They kind of appear and they tell this girl like, hey, we're actually gonna do this and we're taking over from here, so you're good. From what I know, 2 of the organizers were in their 30s and 1 was 19. And from what I've heard, the 19-year-old was doing all the work, which is like crazy to think. Like it's a college freshman
That's sad.
putting on a convention.
Guess what? It still happens.
But at least they're adults. So now we've gone from a 15-year-old to a 19-year-old. They do a Kickstarter campaign and they raise $4,000, which in convention money is like nothing. Like that's not gonna pay for, especially because we're doing all these fandoms and we're having this big convention. $4,000 is not gonna pay for anything, but they, for some reason, think it will. Of course, with the $4,000, I don't know how they can afford this, but they already start booking the high-profile guests. Welcome to Night Vale, Steam Powered Giraffe, Baker Street Babes. Tickets go on sale for $65 for a first-year con. That's pretty expensive. You want to probably aim more for the $30 or $40 range if you're a first-timer, because people are kind of banking on the con being good, or in this case, not. Just sort of like Las Pegasus Unicon, the venue for some reason is booked on a we'll pay you back later condition. Supposedly, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen Internet Historian's video on this, it's really good by the way, you should check it out. Supposedly they never actually put it in writing that they could pay the venue back, they just kind of were like, we'll take your word for it. But in writing, they owed the money. But they're not stressing out because they're expecting 5,000 people to show up. So of course, now this big pipe dream that's been going on Tumblr forever, it's finally gonna happen, but things start going wrong like immediately. They have to change their name to Dashcon from TumbleCon USA because Tumblr's like, we don't want to be a part of this. Like, please leave us out. They find out that their logo was stolen copyrighted artwork, so that's tacky. People are starting to wonder, did they actually book the guests or are they just claiming they did? Things are kind of starting to not add up when people start doing a deeper dive. But you have to remember the majority of attendees were teenagers, very early 20s. It's a little harder for them to pick up on these red flags. So the bad, and I guess I need to speed it up a little bit. I love how I was like, it's not that detailed, and then I'm like, wait, it kind of was. From what I heard, I was actually able to meet somebody that was at Dashcon, and from what she told me, like Friday was good. It wasn't like wonderful, but it wasn't horrible. People are making friends, but there's kind of nothing to do. Like the con opens at 9, but the first panel isn't until 1. There's only one gaming console. Remember, we're inviting 5,000 people. There's like one Xbox.
We are also inviting the video gaming fandom.
Yes, and remember, the video game fandom was invited. Only 500 people show up, which is way lower than 5,000 people if you can do math. But things are still moving. Like Friday during the day was allegedly okay. Panels, I heard that they were not very good. They're hosted, things are doing okay, and then the hotel realizes that they don't have enough people, and they're like, we're gonna shut this down. And everyone kind of knows what happened next. Everyone is ushered into the conference room until they must pay $17,000 or the convention is canceled. Which to like rational people, how many of us are like over 25? We're already older than like the majority of the people that were there. So we have, functioning like frontal cortexes, and we can be like, that's scammy. But remember, these are like 16-year-olds who are like, I really want to see Welcome to Night Vale. So in under an hour, they actually raised the money. Even though this convention's been really boring and not a lot has been going on, they still managed to raise the money and keep the convention going. Yes, they did the Hunger Games thing. Like, I was like, are you serious? It was a thing. So, things start to fall apart on Saturday. Remember, everyone just paid money. They already paid to be here, and then they all gave up their cash to keep this convention going. Vendors aren't selling anything because everyone just donated all their cash just to keep this thing afloat.
Oh, no.
And if you don't know anything about conventions, you do have to pay to be a vendor. I don't know if everyone knows that. There are a couple people who probably think you can just do it for free. So people had to pay money to be here, just as like an FYI.
Yeah, just like at the flea market, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. You have to pay to be there.
I just wanted to double check. Not everyone knows that. Nobody bothered to actually get the rights to stream the movies. They were advertising to show several movies, but as you know, if you're showing it to a crowd, you actually have to license it. It's not like watching it at home with your friends. People find out and start like tweeting about it and start threatening to like report them. So all their little like sing-alongs have to get canceled. Steam Powered Giraffe actually canceled ages ago. They were never planning on being there. And Welcome to Night Vale, they actually canceled the night before because they weren't paid. Of course, they changed the rules on the website so you can't get a refund if you paid extra for these things. And yes, everything sucks. They have to come out. People are waiting for over an hour, if you've seen the videos, for the Welcome to Night Vale reading. And that was kind of the main event for this whole thing. Like one of the big reasons people even donated to keep this alive. And then they come up after an hour and say like, oh, by the way, they walked, sorry. But as you know, you get an extra hour in the ball pit. If you paid extra. And someone pointed out too, like no one was like manning this ball pit. Like it was just in the middle of the floor, as you can see, and I'm pointing, like y'all can see where I'm pointing. The top right here, it was just this tiny little like ball pit in the middle. You got something?
I've only heard rumors, but didn't someone like in the ball pit?
I believe so. I remember seeing a post like that, actually.
I've heard people say that someone peed, and I've heard someone say that that didn't happen. I've heard a lot of things about what happened in that ball pit, but I can't really confirm. Except that it was tiny, as you can see. These people in here. Yeah, I had to include the memes about the ball pit. That's when this convention starts to go viral, when people start posting about getting the extra hour in the ball pit. That's what kind of makes this convention famous. People start making jokes about it. It's still going after this. So by the way, the Welcome to Nightvale thing was at noon. So the convention is still going after that. A lot of people think that like that happened and then it ended. It didn't. The day actually continues on. Most people say it really started to get boring after that. There's panels, but there's no prize support, so they're giving out like hotel mints as prizes.
We did a little bit better. We had Halloween candy this year.
Yeah, that's true. There's no moderators around, so panel content is like questionable. There was like an alpha versus omega male panel, like things like that. Yeah. The vendors just kind of start packing up and leaving due to poor sales because they're not selling anything. And remember, they paid like $150, $200 to be there. So that really sucks. The ball pit deflates later that day. So you paid money. It just gets more and more boring. People start leaving. People start feeling really frustrated, obviously. Sunday, it's still going, by the way. There's a whole other day. Like, all of this happened. Day 3, it's still going. Remember, we all paid $17,000 to be here, so like, let's keep it going. Just kidding. The organizers host a big apology panel, and then they close everything at 1 p.m. So they just kind of start making excuses for themselves. They say they'll do better next year. They really were going to have another one after this. Thankfully, they didn't. So obviously, after the convention happened is when it starts to become really famous. People start coming up with all kinds of theories about what happened. So, Internet Historian did a really good video on Dashcon. If you want to check it out later, it's like a really good resource. He famously did the math on that $17,000, and he breaks it down. He actually like counts how many people were in the room based on the video evidence, and points out that like things are very inconsistent, and he believes that they stole some of the money and that they didn't need that $17,000, that they were lying. Allegedly, the two 30-year-olds were like really toxic and were bullying the 19-year-old and were not doing any of their share of the work.
Still happens.
They supposedly lied about being partnered with the charity Random Acts. Some people are saying it was just a miscommunication. It's still really debatable to this day whether it was honest ignorance or if there was like malicious intent. People have lots of theories. There's lots of rumors around it. As you know, it's one of the most notorious failed events. So, oh gosh, we only have like 10 minutes.
We have about 13 minutes.
Yeah, it's all right. This one will go with detail. Fire Festival, not as much detail. This one is my personal favorite.
Oh, we've got our first raised hand.
All right. Were you there? What's up?
I was going to say something about Dashcon.
Sure.
I heard claims that Dashcon single-handedly killed off the roll-up man.
I've heard that too. It was already kind of on the decline because it was just kind of toxic, but yes. So Rainforest, so this one kind of does a little bit of a 180. This is my personal favorite. I say all the time, if I could go back in time and be there, I would be. Because it sounds hilarious. So this is where ignoring bad behavior causes problems. Who would have thought? This happened in Seattle in 2015. Good question mark intentions. This one actually had been running for 8 years prior to this disastrous one. So this was an established convention, and I feel like I have to really point this out. A lot of people don't know this. This was actually already known to be like a trashy convention within the furry community. Like a lot of people think that like a bunch of furries just descended onto this convention and just ruined it for no reason. I put like stop hating on poor furries. But this was known even in the like furry community. That was like the like, ew, don't go there. Like that was like the like bad things happen there, don't go to that one. Like, so it was already known for that. A lot of people don't know that. They think it was just like randomly a disaster, but it wasn't. For the time it had been running, minor issues had not been addressed. Things had been kind of just flying under the radar for years and years, to the point that an organizer at the opening ceremony literally had to get up and say that the convention isn't under an evil curse. So that's when you know you're off to a good Things had really escalated over the time it had been running to the point that most attendees just saw it as a weekend to just get intoxicated and do stupid stuff. Like that was what it was really known for, and that they did. I just had to do a giant list of everything bad, and this doesn't even cover everything, but this is the most like noteworthy things. So much happened this weekend. Basically, people call it the Reverse Dashcon because it was a mess with the attendees instead of the organizers. So the first thing, copious amounts of booze, nitrous oxide, like literally like what you get at the dentist's office. Weed and shrooms everywhere. Like people are finding like canisters on the ground. This is why it ended up in a more dangerous territory because there were actually several like OD hospitalizations and drug deal arrests, things like that. Do we have a hand up in the back or are we just, okay, just making sure. Some people stuffed towels into the hot tub pump, destroying the hot tub. Somebody loosened the bolts on the pipes in one of the bathrooms, which then someone flushed it and then it flooded the whole bathroom. We got a hand up.
From what I've read, they're jacking around with that. Pretty much launched someone who was
Yes, it launched somebody. They had to sit, from what I heard, they had to sit in like soaking toilet water for like hours before they could get a room. Having sex in the pool, sorry for, and I'm not gonna go into detail on what that looked like, but that happened. And then, hopefully not at the same time, pooping in the pool on purpose. We got another hand up.
Someone was drilling glory holes.
Yes, I heard, I think that might be in there. Yes, that was the next one. Someone was drilling glory holes into the bathroom stall. Yes. There was public nudity. People were walking around naked. Like, staff were allegedly assaulting guests. The diapers. The crinklers were there, and they were pooping in their diapers and walking around. Sorry, I know like people get so weirded out at the word poop, but I work with kids, so it's like not hard for me to say. People were doing that like on purpose. No shame to like the crinkle community if you do that like in private, but like ew. Just you're not supposed to walk around with that in public. The crinkle community, it's furries who wear diapers. You like what you like. I'm not here to judge anybody. What you do like in the privacy of your home or within your community, but like it was supposed to be an all ages convention. So, and this is not even gonna sound bad compared to everything. Pizza on windshields and on the ground. People were just flinging it. They destroyed the elevator buttons by stomping on them. Their kids just casually wandering into the 18+ sections of the artist alley. Very bad, yes. Yes. And you can imagine what that art looked like. There are graphic drawn depictions of sexual acts taped on the outside of hotel doors. So like you're walking down the hall and you see, you can fill in the blank in your head. People are bribing staff. People that don't have badges are bribing staff to get into panels, going from $1 to $5. Someone allegedly made like $100 in a day. People are putting stickers in urinals for no reason. Large amounts of petty theft, and giving out alcoholic drinks at panels. Those are just some of the things that I was able to find. This is one weekend, y'all. This is 3 days. I got some pictures. The total damages estimated about 100 to 150,000. I put that star there. That's not how the art was sold. There was no star there. You can guess what was under that. By the way, kids are making it into the artist alley where things like that are being sold. There's stickers, diaper. I made it small on purpose. There's the pizza on the ground. There's this. This is also like further proof that people knew that it was like kind of a trashy convention. Someone made a bingo. Just like expecting to see these things. So, after all of that, we had a whole weekend. They did actually have enough money to pay it off, but the hotel was like so fed up. They did have a 2015 and 2016 contract, and they were like, you're not coming back. Supposedly, according to one of the organizers, they were blackmailed into sending a letter saying they were canceling, and the hotel was like, we're gonna pretend that you did if you don't, and then we're gonna sue you for the cancellation fee. They were like, get out of here. Which is understandable, because look at what happened.
Oh, wow.
What the hell was it?
I can scroll back and look for it. It was in Seattle. It was the airport Hilton. I can't believe I just remembered that. Things were so bad that a begrudged staff member, nobody's really quite sure who did this, but they sent a letter to every hotel in Seattle and then every hotel chain in Washington warning them, do not host Rainforest. So Rainforest is desperate to still have another convention after all of that. They finally find a venue in Spokane, which is 5 hours away from Seattle, supposedly like kind of a redneck conservative town, which is not great for furries. So after everything, they're still somehow gonna have Rainforest 2016. Organizers, apparently there was a lot of infighting, but they agree that they're going to clean up their act and start like actually enforcing the rules. So Rainforest 2016 is a go, people start planning, they're getting ready to go to Spokane. Haha, just kidding. The Tattletale Bandit, we still don't know who it was. They literally the day before the convention, they send enough detailed information to the hotel that the hotel kills the contract, literally the day before Rainforest 2016 is supposed to happen. Yes! So it dies. People are really mad at the Tattletale, but the staff do admit that it's kind of their own fault because of how rough it's been. This is from the Izzy's YouTube channel. It said they had such an unstable history. Yes, a lone gunman pulled the trigger, but the board and the executive staff sold them 5 years worth of bullets. I loved that. On the outside looking in, most people can agree it was a disaster, but there are people that are like still angry that it was canceled. A lot of staff and ex-con goers, like someone is still updating their Twitter as of late 2021. You can see some of the tweets that have been like, someone is like still logging in and still tweeting. People were very upset that this was canceled. I really hope it doesn't come back, I'm gonna be real. Although if it does, I'm totally going, but like, like literally they tweet, no one is perfect and people deserve second chances. So this was very heated when this was canceled. But it was canceled just because of how big of a mess it was. And we are really running short on time, which is okay because everyone knows what happened at this last one. The Fire Festival. Last but not least. And this one I was like, this could be its own panel. Basically, you can sum this up as slackers from every group project ever coming together to put together their own convention/festival. Does anybody not know what Fire Festival is? It is okay if you don't know what Fire Festival is. Basically, it was, there were no good intentions. It was a music festival planned by a man named Billy McFarland. It was supposed to be this big 2-weekend event in the Bahamas where basically it was supposed to be this like immersive experience. They were supposed to have Blink-182, good music, Major Lazer. Basically, and I want to see if I put anything else in here. The dude just wanted to party and didn't really plan very hard and kind of scammed people out of money. It's so hard to describe because there's just so much that happened. I literally just had to make a list of like all the documentaries, but basically, you can sum it up. I put it down here. We didn't even try that hard. Like they kind of just partied and they were like, everything will be put together. Everything will be fine. I personally recommend the Hulu documentary. The Netflix one is also really good. There's several YouTube videos that literally all just discuss the planning and how it went wrong because it was so much. But basically, they were not ready for this. Another giant list of everything bad, and I do have to go quick. I did not realize that this panel would run this long. I am so sorry, everyone. They were promised a private jet. It turns out to be just like this really tiny, cramped little airplane. They use a yellow school bus for their like luxury transportation. And if you know, people paid a lot of money to be there. The tickets, I think the lowest you could get was $500, which is a steal if you're thinking like going to the Bahamas for 2 weekends, but that's not like, you know, a $65 pass to San Japan. They're using FEMA like emergency tents instead of these luxury villas that they were promised. There's nowhere for anyone to go because things aren't set up, so they just started giving people tequila. Great idea. Once people realize things have gone to shoot, because you can't curse, people literally start like stealing mattresses off the ground and hoarding toilet paper. There was a picture somewhere of a woman that was carrying like 10 or 11 rolls of toilet paper. They have porta potties. Remember, they're promised these like luxury toilets. There's no medical staff on site. All the acts cancel as soon as they realize what a cluster heck it is. Can't curse. There's not really much food and water. Yes, everyone knows the cheese sandwich. They were promised like luxury catering. People are desperate to leave. They run into the airport. The airport locks them in. People get dehydrated. There's a lot of petty theft. There's other crimes. Chaos just kind of descends and people go nuts. Unpaid locals, they had to hire a lot of local contractors to put this thing together, and then they didn't pay them. They become violent. They start literally like kidnapping staff members. People are hiding. It was crazy. If you want to learn more on that was in the Netflix documentary. There's a bazillion things that go wrong. And it was basically just people paid thinking it was going to be this like luxury experience, and then it's literally like someone said like Lord of the Flies. Like you're just like, and it is, people just go nuts. And they hide in these emergency tents until they can get a plane ride back. The ugly aftermath, of course it goes super viral. It's on the news, it's on Twitter, people are laughing at it. People are like, why did you pay, $10,000 to go see Blink-182? So Billy McFarland, the organizer, and this is a very gross oversimplification, he's arrested and charged with defrauding investors by saying like, we have all this money and we're doing all these things, and they weren't doing those things. He's let out on bail, and then he tries to continue to scam people after he's let out on bail by selling fake tickets to like events happening in NYC. I still can't believe it all happened, TBH. That one, yeah, I wanted to just do very briefly because I knew I needed to cover it. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you if you came out to our other panels as well. If you have suggestions for other events we could cover next time we do this panel, let us know. Have a great rest of the convention if you're sticking around. Thank you, everybody.